If you'd told me last year I'd be fighting $1 million battle with a bunch of suburban wannabe warlords over a patch of dying grass and a crooked barn, I'd have laughed and asked what you were drinking. But here I am, standing at the rusted gate of my grandfather's ranch, clutching a blood-red eviction notice like it's some kind of death sentence. 24 hours, it says. 24 hours to erase 4 generations. That's all the time I get. Yeah, that happened. The sun's doing that thing where it dips just low enough to make everything look cinematic. Golden light, sliding across the pastures, shadows reaching like fingers toward the busted horse barn that's been holding itself together since before color TV. Behind me, the barn looks more tired than I am, paint peeling off in big, stubborn chunks, one of the stalls hanging open like a broken jaw. And all I can hear in my head is Adrian Kingsley's voice, smooth as polished marble, cold as a freezer aisle. "Mr. Donovan, I trust you received our notice." Oh, I got it all right. She figured what a soldier back from 3 years overseas would be too fried to fight, that I'd just shrug and let her bulldoze everything my family built. Lady, I've fought actual wars. Bureaucrats in pressed pantsuits don't scare me. The notice shakes a little in my hands, heavier than any rifle I carried in Kabul. I try to make sense of the legal mumbo-jumbo, something about zoning violations, residential codes, the HOA voting to wipe my family off the map. Oh, and if I don't demolish everything by tomorrow sunset, they'll do it for me and slap me with a $47,000 bill. That's right, nearly 50 grand just to watch them rip up the last traces of my grandfather's sweat and sawdust. Walking the edge of the property, gravel crunches under my boots. 3 years since I set foot here, but I could find every pothole blindfolded. The old sign above the main barn door is barely hanging on Donovan Ranchest in 1947, carved by Clifford Donovan himself the year he got home from Korea. One corner's rotted, so the whole thing leans like it's had too much whiskey. Nothing's changed except everything's worse. It's like time took a personal interest in destroying this place, and now the HOA's just putting a bow on it. My phone buzzes, unknown number. I answer. There she is again, Adrian, cool-clipped, dripping with power. I understand this may come as a shock, she says, sounding exactly like someone who's never been shocked in her life. But the community has standards, Mr. Donovan. Your property doesn't meet them, doesn't. I stare at the barn while a fat old owl swoops through a shattered skylight. My grandfather signed a lease with the county in '47, I tell her. Your HOA didn't even exist when this land was fenced in. She laughs. Not the funny kind, more like ice cubes rattling in a glass you can't afford. I'm afraid you're mistaken. Past arrangements don't override current zoning. You've been gone too long and the bylaws are clear. Vacant property forfeits its protection. She tosses out a number. 83% voted to turn my family history into a pile of rubble. I can feel my jaw tightening. What's really going on, I ask. There's 3 other farms within 5 miles. Why mine? I hear the briefest hesitation. Your property sits in a strategically important location, she says, voice just a little less polished. We have investors interested in developing the area. Luxury resort, golf spa, you know the drill. Your ranch is the obstacle. And then, like she's doing me a favor, she offers 300 grand. Double market value, she says. As if my grandfather's ghost would take a check. This isn't about money, I tell her, my boots moving toward the old storage shed more by habit than thought. It's about legacy. She doesn't even pause. Then your legacy ends tomorrow at sunset. Click, call over. I stand in the quiet, letting the dark fill my chest. Not anger, not really. More like that icy focus you get before a bad night mission, knowing you have one shot to get it right. Inside the shed, the tools are where I left them. But it's my grandmother's oak chest. I'm after the one she made me swear I wouldn't open unless there was no other choice. Locks corroded, but the wood's still solid. I break it open, hands shaking. And there it is, photographs, medals, old letters, and at the very bottom a thick yellow envelope. The wax seal cracks when I open it. My grandmother's handwriting, land lease agreement, County of Riverside, 1947-2046. Original documents do not destroy. I spread out the pages, 99-year lease, right to operate agricultural facilities on 15 acres in exchange for maintaining infrastructure. Doesn't expire for another 21 years. Page 7 catches my eye. Any structures built by non-leaseholders subject to commercial rent payable monthly to leaseholder. I nearly laugh. Adrienne built her fancy HOA office right on this land 5 years ago. If I'm reading this right, she owes me rent and a lot of it. I lock the docs in my truck and drive straight to Miles Quinlan, the only attorney I trust. He's older than most of the furniture in his office, but sharper than a tack. He studies the lease, makes those little lawyer noises, and finally looks up. Fletcher, this isn't just good, it's a grenade. Not only does the HOA have no right to demolish your property, but they've been squatting on your land for years. Back rent alone is over $1 million, maybe more with interest. I just about fall out of my chair. So the people trying to destroy me owe me. Miles gives a rare sly grin. Oh, they owe you, but we need to verify everything. Meet me at County Records, 6 a.m. 12 hours later, I'm at the HOA office at sunrise, watching the light turn their community center into a golden monument to arrogance. Adrienne steps out dressed like she's off to a Senate hearing, not a small-town spat. She tries to play it cool, invites me in, shows me thick binders of meeting minutes. We're transparent, she says. Everything above board. I flip to the vote 39 in favor, 8 against. Just barely enough for a demolition order. She's sitting there, fingers laced, giving me the just business speech. But then I spot something in the old minutes 4 years ago, right before I deployed Adrienne, tried to double HOA fees. Who shot it down? Clifford Donovan's grandson. She hasn't forgotten. You called it a cash grab. She reminds me, almost smiling. You made quite an impression. That's when it hits me. This was never about zoning. It's about revenge, about someone with a vendetta, about a power play. I ask her about the investors, about the demolition crew. She smirks, sunset, 9 hours left. Then I ask how long the HOA office has been on this land. 5 years, she says, not seeing the trap. I show her the lease photos. In an hour, you'll get an email that'll ruin your day. I walk out before she can answer. Miles and I dig through county records with a clerk who's seen it all. We find the original lease, perfect match, signatures, maps, everything. And the best part? The HOA office sits dead center on our land. That's nearly $1 million in back rent, plus interest if we can show they knew. By noon, Miles files an emergency injunction. I send Adrienne and her board the evidence copies to every board member, subject line, urgent legal matter. 6 minutes later, she replies, we need to talk. Yeah, I bet. At the hearing, Adrienne rolls in with a big city law firm and that same mask she always wears. Her attorney tries to claim the lease is obsolete, that times have changed, that I abandoned the place. Judge Coington, who looks like she's cracked skulls for breakfast, isn't having it. When she asks if the HOA knew about the lease before building, Miles brings up the old meeting minutes. Adrienne had been targeting our ranch from the start. The judge's eyes get sharp. Temporary restraining order, no demolition for 2 weeks. Ranch stands. Next day, a reporter named Harper Delaney calls. Adrienne's already spinning the story Donovan's extorting his neighbors. Harper wants the truth. I hand over every scrap of evidence, lease maps, board minutes. Her front page piece hits like a sledgehammer. Veteran fights to save family ranch as HOA pushes luxury resort. Riverside splits right down the middle. Half the town rallies behind me. Old-timers sharing stories about Clifford, the other half calling me a community destroyer out for cash. Adrienne doubles down, press conferences, wild claims that my lawsuit will bankrupt families, kill college funds. The angry calls start the threats. The mailbox graffiti. Some nights it feels like the whole town wants my head. That's when Irving, a former board member, comes forward with old emails Adrienne knew about the lease before building the HOA office. She was plotting while I was still overseas. Harper publishes again. HOA president planned land grab before veterans deployment. Emails reveal it's wildfire. Suddenly the tide's turning. Petitions to investigate Adrienne crowds outside the HOA office. But Adrienne's not done. She countersues, claiming she's found a 1985 document where my grandfather voluntarily gave up all rights for 50 grand. The signature looks real, but Miles spots the problem. The ink's from the 90s. The notary seal is digital, impossible for 1985. Adrienne faked the whole thing. Miles files forensics evidence in court fraud, plain as day. When the judge sees the emails where Adrienne orders her assistant to create documentation if necessary, it's game over. Judge Coington rules my lease stands. Adrienne is out. HOA owes me $1.44 million plus interest, and Adrienne's off to court for forgery and fraud. She loses her job, her reputation, her big payday. I get my family's land back, plus enough to rebuild. 3 months later, I'm standing in a brand new section of the barn, running my hand over fresh timber where my grandfather's initials are carved next to mine. The smell of new wood and grass, the sound of neighbors gathering for the first time since the verdict. I set up a fund to help other families fighting these battles, Donovan Heritage Fund, supporting small farms, protecting land from corporate greed. Irving's the new HOA president. First thing he does is slash the fees, put the money toward real community projects. Harper's investigative work wins her awards and helps change state law. Now HOAs can't just bulldoze people on a whim. And Adrienne. Last I saw her, she wouldn't meet my eye in the grocery store. She's not the villain of Riverside anymore, just a cautionary tale. The ranch is alive again. Kids running in the grass, horses grazing, veterans learning to heal. The barn Adrienne wanted to raise is now a classroom for the next generation. As the sun sets, I walk to my grandparents' graves, promise them I kept it for them, and for the people who still believe legacy matters. And standing there, it hits me. Legacy isn't what you inherit. It's what you're willing to fight for. Bureaucracy can threaten it, money can tempt you to sell it, but if you stand your ground, even when everyone calls you the villain, you might just win. So what do you think, folks? Was justice served, or did I go too far? Where's the line between progress and preserving the past? Let me know in the comments. Share your own stories, your take on right, wrong, and what legacy means to you. Because if there's one thing I learned, it's that sometimes the fight for a piece of land is really a fight for your place in the world, and that's a battle worth having every single time.